and you've done a lot of incredible work with brands like Nike, Puma,
Adidas, Hypebeast, Foot Locker, Culture Kings, JD Sports.
Walk us through the creative process. Who's coming up with the ideas?
I think it released a month ago and it's on like 5 million views now.
This week's episode is brought to you by One Shot. One Shot's for photographers and videographers into sports and street culture. So if this sounds like you, it's time you checked out the online community. The One Shot online community features regular challenges, networking opportunities, giveaways, online education from myself to help you frame your dream. And guess what? It's free. So you can be located anywhere in the world and you can join this community. All you got to do is click the link in the description below and I'll catch you in there. So guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rush. We're coming to you live. Well, not necessarily live, but on YouTube from Melbourne, Australia. I've got my man, Jacob Pedersen in the building. Welcome to the show, my bro.
Thank you for having me, man. Good to be here.
Give me a little,
What's up?
little love, man.
You good?
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in a minute, so
Yeah,
it's good
been
to catch
a while,
up.
man. It's been a while.
I think it's good though, because we'll probably catch up and talk about things throughout this that we would have talked about if we'd seen each other. So I think it'll be
exactly.
good.
I mean, this is how you got to catch up with your creative mates now. You got to drag them to your YouTube show.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't respond to your phone calls. I'm not saying that you didn't, bro. So, look, firstly, what we were talking about before the camera started rolling was how do you label yourself as a creative in terms of, are you a photographer, a videographer, creative director? Like, what do you label yourself as?
Yeah. Like we were saying, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint it really these days. Actually, I thought about it, and what I would say like, I'm in video production, because I guess I don't really have a certain role. Like sometimes I'll be a producer on big shoots. I'll be a producer. Other times I'll be just like helping direct. Sometimes it's just me on the job, and I'm doing everything. So I think there's all those sort of things, and plus, like you said, the creative direction side, photography, all these other things that I can do that I don't always put out there as like, I do this and I do that kind of thing, So yeah, I think I would just say I'm in video production, or I do a bit of photography, or yeah.
Look, firstly, he's completely playing himself down. Honestly, what's really cool is before you and I connected, I think it was about a year ago, I'd been a massive fan of your work for a long time. You were essentially like the ultimate trendsetter when it came to hip-hop music videos, and you've done a lot of incredible work with brands like Nike, Puma, who else?
Adidas, Hypebeast, Foot Locker, Culture Kings, JD Sports. I mean, yeah.
The dream list.
There's a few on there, yeah. There's a fair few on there, but I was gonna say likewise. I'd seen your work like through like your stuff with Kobe and stuff like that. So that's one of the ones I'm like, man, I wish I could have just been there or something, But
yeah.
But yeah, like exactly the same. And when I moved down to Melbourne, I was like always kind of waiting for a chance to kind of actually reach out and get in touch with you and catch up properly, So here we are,
Here we are, man.
Yeah.
We're getting busy.
Yeah.
But in terms of hip hop artists, it's a very long list. But who are some of the guys that you've created videos for?
Oh, I mean, mostly like we're kind of, and it's not just me. It's like our team as well. So I guess I got to say that it's not just me. There's like Moonboy Kevin, who I work with closely and run like Moonboy Studios with, and then like our whole team of people who come and go and stuff too. So, but I would say in Australia, like our list of music videos is mostly Australia. Like the likes of like Hooligan Hefts, Young and Lips, HP Boys, Lissy. Yeah, the list is so. I should have thought Cursor. We've done some with Cursor.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So we've done a whole bunch of music videos in Australia, and sort of really, I guess, been a part of that for. I think that was maybe more a little bit earlier, around like 2021, 22 sort of thing. And then we sort of transitioned to the brand stuff, just because we kind of had to make a living, I think, as well, And I think when we got into it, it's like if you do a music video and you're doing like 4 or 5 days of shooting for this music video, and the edit is like 3 minutes long, the budget would then be the same as something from a brand, and it's a 1-day shoot and a 45-second edit, So it's kind of like, like the money side, trying to run an actual business and live off of it, made sense to sort of do more branding stuff. So that was kind of when we transitioned across.
Well, let's jump into it now in terms of the music videos, because a lot of the time when we think of a hip hop music video, we're thinking of Drake and Kendrick Lamar and these great big budgets. What's it like here in Australia? Are you just on set popping champagne bottles and rolling up in limousines and hiring all the biggest and best camera gear? What's it like a lot of the time?
I think Australia's a funny one. I think like you hear about these big budget things and you see these big budget videos overseas, and I don't think it, at least in hip hop, I don't think it has happened here yet. There was a lot of stuff that around obviously the era kind of before 1-4 was like Manu Crooks and a lot of those guys coming through, and then 1-4 obviously did their thing. Then that kind of created that whole new wave of Australian hip hop that was like, the other guys, HP Boys, Young and Lips, all that sort of thing. So I think there was like a period where it was getting a lot of money and funding from labels too, and I don't know whether it's exactly like that now still. So I think like there was like a peak of like where there was a lot of money going into it, and now I think it's kind of maybe trailed off a little bit. Obviously, like I think it's economy stuff too, right? Like labels are trying to save bucks, save money on that sort of side, and I think the music video thing itself is also, with the rise of like things like TikTok and shorter content, the music video is kind of like nearly like a lost art. Like you're probably better off as an artist coming up, unless you're really well known, like a Drake or something like that, or like you're well established in Australia. I feel like you're better off putting money into this shorter form content that you're kind of going to kind of be able to spread out and get more return on, in a sense, rather than, because you could put a bunch of, like, say you put 6 short videos out or something, that could equate to 1 million views maybe. Whereas if you're not quite established yet and you put out a music video, I mean, you might get 100,000, you might get 200,000 in Australia, So until our music is put out to the world and gets more eyes, I think that's what kind of limits it as well,
And I mean, I guess it's saying the obvious too, right? Australia's a much, much smaller economy compared to America. So just in general, we don't have the population, and, the economy isn't anywhere close to the American market in that regard. But in saying that, that's what drew my attention to the work that you guys do, is when I saw your music videos, I was like, holy smokes, has the budgets just dramatically increased? Because the way you guys create the music videos, it looks extremely big budget. It can compete with any American hip hop music video in my eyes. So how have you gone about doing that? I mean, is it that thing where you put it down to being extremely creative and, really pushing the budget, or like what's the process, in terms of giving it that wow factor?
Yeah, I get you. I think like a key thing for, Moonboy Studios in a sense is Kevin's skill set. Like he's a really good editor, but he also is just a genius at like After Effects, visual effects, incorporating like more 3D stuff into things. So I think all those kind of things will kind of provide more production value that you don't necessarily need to get on set, or you don't need to get with big cameras or luxury houses or whatever it is, So I think having a skill set like his definitely is like what all of our music video work is kind of based off. I think it's kind of like, how do we shoot this to then do something cool in VFX that adds to the story, adds to the video, adds to the production value of it. So I think in that sense, and I guess it's just kind of like you're looking in Australia and being like, okay, cool, that's the work that's here. But then you're looking overseas and you're like, okay, we need to do stuff at this level overseas to try and be at the top here, and then work through like that. So yeah, I think it's a few things like that. And I guess it's also, I think, being a perfectionist is kind of like, it's good and bad. Like it's good because like, I think I have it a bit, but Kevin definitely has it too. Like he's like, he'll just stay up for like nights and nights on end to make sure that something is as good as it can be, and if it means delivering a few days late, he'll tell them, he'll be like, hey, this is going to be a few days late because I need to make it as good as it can be. You guys are paying money for it. I want to make sure that it is not only up to standard for you guys, but up to standard for us too, So I think having that kind of mindset as well, I think that pushes it all up. And I guess also being willing to put more hours in than you're maybe being paid for equally. You know, I think there is a fair bit of like sacrifice in terms of like, if you did a corporate video, you could make 5 times the money you're making by what you're putting into this music video. You know, so yeah, I think it's a combination of all that stuff, but I think, yeah, at the end of the day, you're trying to, I guess, do the best work you can and always kind of add something new and level up your own skill set too, I think. So that's kind of what we did, and that was the blueprint that we were trying to always do, is like, how do we do something, and we would never try and do something the same twice, you know. Like if we've done an idea and it's like, we'd always be like, okay, we can't do that again, you know. That's kind of it. Like,
see, that'd be a great question to ask, is where do you draw inspiration from? Because you know, it can be very difficult when you're doing a lot of videos to stay, you know, at the forefront, stay fresh, keep the ideas flowing. And I've got no doubt that artists would have seen, you know, a particular music video and been like, oh bro, can we do the exact same thing? So where do you draw your inspiration from?
I think it's obviously like looking at similar types of things, like looking at music videos, but then also just looking in the broader thing as well. Like it was kind of reverse when I worked at Culture Kings for a bit doing the brand stuff. I would look at music videos and be like, what ideas are in music videos that I can apply to these like outfits and like all the shoots we were doing there, you know? So I think it's kind of vice versa. You see something, or you kind of see an idea and you're like, okay, use this as the basis, but where can we take this idea, and how do you kind of, you know, if this is the idea, how do you make it a few degrees different and make it your own in a sense as well, you know? So I think like our thing was never like, we didn't want to copy directly anything, but having like, if it's like a Zoom transition or something, having that as the basis and then using that, and how do we make it our own and how do we add different shit to it? So yeah, I think just got to keep an open mind and kind of just get inspiration for wherever you find it, I guess. And if you have an idea, like note it down, because like 9 times out of 10 you forget it. I guess you've probably forgotten hundreds of great ideas that you're like, this would be a sick for a video, and then you get distracted and then you can't come back to it and you're like, oh, I had a good idea earlier, I don't know what it was, you know.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think noting it down is like a big thing too, like trying to jot it down and make sure it's there so you can come back to it. Yeah.
And how does the creative process work? So let's just say, okay, what's a music video that we can use as an example? What's a hip hop video that you've done, or a drill one that you've done that you're super proud of?
I'm trying to think. We did one with HP on it, one of the HP boys, and Lissy, and that was called Roll Like That.
Okay.
And that's,
okay.
Do you know the one?
I think I've seen the one that it's shot in Brisbane, right?
Yeah. And we like sort of referenced old like 90s like videos with two people
I've
and
seen
stuff.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay, well this is a great example. So when that project came about, walk us through the creative process. Who's coming up with the ideas? How much input does, you know, the artist have? Are they signed to a label? Does the label, you know, get input? What's the, you know, the initial process when you guys get together?
Yeah, I think by that stage of like what we were doing, I feel like maybe it was more the ball was in our court, because I think we had kind of done enough work and we have enough you have enough proof of concept that you can kind of go, yeah, we'll come up with some ideas, you guys pick one, we'll make it happen kind of thing. Whereas I think earlier on it was more like, oh, this is the idea I want. And then we have to try and find a medium between what we want to do and what they want. But for that one, it was like, they were like, hey, we want to shoot a video for this song. Just give us some ideas and we'll go with it. And I think Kevin was driving, because he's one of those people, he's like, oh, I need to go for a drive and like listen to the song on repeat, and then he'll come up with something. And he came back and we bounced ideas around for a few days, and he come back and he was like, well, there's 2 of them. So like, let's just like reference like all like TV shows and movies where there's like 2 main characters, you know. So we came up with like Men in Black, Breaking Bad, Bad Boys 2, there's another one too. Rush Hour, you know. So like we came up with like these movies where there's like 2 very like iconic kind of characters in there, and it's like there's always 2 of them. They're like a team kind of thing. So we're like, oh, let's play with that and try and like recreate these scenes and like try and just recreate the ideas from these movies. But obviously like do it in a kind of comedic way where it leans into like the funny scenes and like trying to make it like, hey, this is like an action movie, but we've flipped it into a music video and combined all this nostalgia and shit like that, I think. Sorry for swearing.
That's all right, man.
All right.
You can swear. It's all good, bro. Well, okay, so with that as an example, how do you go about managing expectations, you know, with the artist, but even with yourself? Because I think that might even be more difficult because, you know, you've got these amazing ideas and you know what you want to create, but then you're potentially limited by the budget or, you know, what you're physically able to do in a certain amount of days. How do you go about, you know, controlling that aspect?
Yeah, I think once we wrote out once Kevin kind of wrote out the plot for like the music video and how it'll kind of go between scenes and introduce the new movie, like Men in Black kind of comes in at a certain point and all that kind of thing. So once you kind of get that on paper, we were kind of reverse engineering to that, you know. So we were quite lucky, I think, like the guys we were working with, like Lissy and HP on it and like their team and stuff, they were quite open to like, hey, we have, you know, this period of time to shoot it in. And I think we were able to kind of dictate, hey, this is going to be 5 days, you know, not full days. Some of them were full days. Some of them were long, like 14, 16 hour, crazy, just ridiculous kind of things. Like from the time I left home to the time I got home would be like 16 hours or maybe even longer, you know. But I think in doing that, you kind of go like, yeah, you know, the artists don't necessarily love it. They kind of like at some point it gets a bit, it drags on a bit. We're setting up lights, they're just sitting around, and then they're kind of a bit, you know, which will happen, you know, they're kind of there because it's part of what they need to do in a sense as well, you know. But I feel like it's always worth it in the end when they see the end result, or they come into the set and you're going to start shooting and they're like, well, this set is like decked out, you know, because I think for that video in particular, we went 100% on set design. Like it had to look crazy, you know, because I think if you're trying to replicate a movie, like all these like awesome movies from your childhood and stuff, we were like, it needs to kind of be exactly like this, and we have to kind of hit this benchmark of it looking like it's like similar to it or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, like I guess in the sense of that, they were willing to put in as much time as it took, I think, in a sense as well. So yeah, I think that comes from building that like rapport as well and that trust, because we'd worked with them on a few different things. So I think they knew, oh yeah, it's going to be long hours, but at the end it's going to be worth it. Yeah.
And how big is the team for a project like this? Is it just you and Kevin, or have you got multiple people on set?
That one was quite a fair few of us. I think 3. I mean, all up, we don't do as big a crews as a lot of other sets and stuff you might see, because I think we're all kind of self-taught too. So we've all come up in our own sense doing everything. Yeah. So if you need to move lights, you can move lights. If you need to run some stuff on the camera, if you need to do something else, everyone can pitch in and do different things across the board. And we kind of check the ego at the door in a sense. Like it's like, if your job is just to like, you know, hold a light and move it or whatever it is, that's your job, you know. You're not always going to be the one on the camera directing whatever, but at the same time, it's all a piece of the puzzle. But I think 8 to 10 people, maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's still decent size.
Still decent size, yeah. I would say like around 8 for that. Once you sort of count cameras, who's running the camera, who's directing, set design, lighting, and then BTS, because we always try and document. We've always tried to document our stuff and do like a behind the scenes video of the project and things like that. So yeah, I think some crews you see though is like, you know, 14, 15, 16 people though for like a similar type of thing. So yeah, I think for us, we kind of keep it small and nimble, which I think is unique for us in a sense too. So
yeah, no, that's great. And was there a record label involved in the process? Yeah.
So I think Lissy was on. He had his own label. They're like a sub label for a bigger thing, but yeah, he kind of, once his music took off in a sense, they were able to make like a label, and he could kind of pick and choose and sign people to his label. So I think the label's like basically him and his management team run that label in a sense, but I think it's a sub label of something bigger. But like exactly the same though. Like we'd done some videos with them, and because they're from Ipswich near us anyway, I think some of us had known them through different things anyway. So I think there's a level of trust there already, and a level of they understand what it'll take to do something that's that next level in terms of like it's not just set a camera up and have a few cars and rap to the camera or something like that. It's we're trying to do something bigger than that.
Yeah. And when it comes to record labels, have you had many problems with them in the past when it comes to the creative side? Because I worked at Universal Music, back in the days in Sydney, and I mean, look, I'll take a shot at them. There's just a lot of dinosaurs that work there, and they've got no idea.
Oh yeah.
So you guys are aware of like what's the trends are, what the artists want. But have you had situations where the label comes in and they're like, oh, we should tone this down, or oh, maybe edit this and edit that? And are there any of those issues that have happened in the past? Or has it been pretty smooth sailing?
Pretty smooth, I think.
Yeah.
Like, because I think you kind of get past that in the sense of when you're coming up with the ideas and putting the treatment together for it. I think that's where the objections will come up. So there's not really anything that happens like later on in the process where they're like, oh, we need to take this out or something like that. Or, yeah, I don't really think labels, I think, most of the time the labels have kind of let the management decide and,
So that, as in the artist manager?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like that, and I think you get across that hurdle when it's in the ideation stage of it, where you're doing like the treatment, or you're doing the idea and writing out and fleshing out how it's actually going to progress through the story, and you're writing in like from 0 to 20 seconds it's this and this is what's happening kind of thing. So once you get into all that breakdown and stuff, I think that's where you kind of get through those objections, and then the rest of the project, hopefully there's no, oh, can we change this halfway through shooting or something, so yeah, I don't really think there's been anything like that. I mean, it's more so stuff with brands where like the brand will come back and completely derail whatever was kind of, whatever we were shooting to try and create. The brand comes in and goes, oh, we want to just change it and put more product shots in instead of this creative transition or something like that, so yeah, I think the brand side definitely, but for the artist management and stuff like that and the labels, I think you kind of get it out of the way early.
Yeah, okay. Now, when it comes to communicating with a lot of these hip hop and drill artists, you can be dealing with big egos, guys from rough backgrounds. How do you go about communicating with these guys, and how important is that element in the process?
I think, I mean, like even some like artists that you would think are like have this like kind of bravado or like this ego about them, when you actually meet them and stuff and you're there working with them, it's not there. Like it's still there, I guess, in a sense that they're confident in their music and confident in themselves and stuff like that. But I think there's never been a thing where like, oh, it's like rubbed us the wrong way or anything like that. I think there's a mutual respect there too. Like obviously they're super talented at what they're doing. And then I think they also kind of know that we're super talented too, and it's not our first rodeo. Like we've done lots of projects. We know what we're doing, and they kind of know that they're going to get a good end result too, I think. So yeah, and I think like a lot of those guys, if you run into them, if I run into them now, I'd be able to say what's up, and like it's you kind of how you catch up kind of thing, but like I think I've never really had anyone really go like rub me the wrong way that we've worked with on a music video.
Now, one thing that you guys have been at the forefront with all your video work, but particularly the hip hop scene, is you guys are setting the trends. And what happens, or what's the feeling that you get when you see a lot of people trying to bite your style? Is it one of those scenarios where you're just like, okay, it is what it is, or is it kind of that thing where you're like, damn man, like
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think for us it's kind of like most of the stuff that we have done is inspired by something in a sense anyway. So I think for us it's not really anything to kind of, if someone does something similar to what you've done or something, it's like, okay, you just need to like move on to what your next thing is, because you can't really, like we were never going to redo that idea anyway, so it's like even if it gets redone and stuff and people do something that's similar, it's kind of like, okay, cool, but we're more worried about what's next and what we're trying to do different in future, I think. And I think that's kind of where our mindset's been at with stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everything's, have you seen those quotes and stuff? It's like nothing's original anymore. It's like every idea has been done nearly, you know? So I think at the end of the day, unless you really are coming up with a random thought and you're like, this could be sick, there's always something that's kind of inspired something along the way in terms of ideas and stuff like that. So
now, in regards to the hip hop music videos and the drill stuff, and you guys do stuff for some Afrobeat artists as well.
Yeah,
right?
That was recent. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that, because the production on that looked ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that was super last minute, and it was because it's for Ruga, who's from Nigeria, and the feature was Tiwa Savage, and I'd heard some of her music, but I didn't realize how big she was until I looked at her Instagram. It's 18 million followers, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I mentioned to my friend who knows all about Afrobeats and stuff, and he was like, dude, she's like the Beyonce of
wow,
that kind of level, And
they came to you.
Well, yeah, I don't even, I got a message on Instagram, and it was it wasn't even our page, it was just mine. And they were like, hey, can you do a music video for Ruga? And I'd heard of the name and I knew his music. And then when I Googled him and I saw he had the pink hair and the eye patch, I was like, I know this guy,
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not super into that music, and I'm not super across it all. So it was kind of left to field. I was like, oh, let me check who this guy is so I know what I'm dealing with. And then we're like, oh, okay. And they were here in the next, it was a week and a half lead time on it. So
you shot it in Australia?
In Australia. So we shot it on the Gold Coast because they were touring. So they were both doing the same festival, Promised Land.
Yeah, of course.
And then so they were both going to be in the Gold Coast at the same time. So I think for their schedule, maybe that's the only time that overlapped where they could do it as well. So I think it's just one of those things, the stars align, and all of a sudden you have a week and a half to do this music video that's probably, I think it released a month ago and it's on 5 million views now. So
damn.
So it's for us, it's probably the most views we've got on a music video, nearly, So it's kind of oh, okay. We knew it was going to be that level too. You know? He's got 2.5, 3 million followers on Instagram and stuff like that. So we knew, and obviously we've heard his music and stuff, so we knew that, okay, yeah, he's got a big following if it's reached Australia as well. So
what happens when you get a video that's getting traction 5 million views? Are you getting a lot more offers, or there are other opportunities that come about from it?
No.
Not
yet. Not yet. No, I think when we obviously were posting it and stuff, and when the video released, our social media pages and stuff got a bit of a boost and followers and stuff like that. But I think in terms of business and getting hit up to do more stuff, not so much. But I think that's probably a thing of just we're in Australia, so Afrobeats artists are probably, I think their team and their management is based between Nigeria and London. Okay. So that's his kind of area. Nigeria and London is where he's usually operating between and doing stuff like that. So to be out here, it's kind of other side of the world, different time zones, everything. So I think for us, we weren't really expecting to get hit up big time from it, but I think it was just something cool for us to kind of do, and we obviously knew it was going to do well. So, and compared to budgets we've used here, we have had in Australia, I think the budget was pretty good too. So I guess everything kind of made sense, and it was a no-brainer. Why not? We have the time to do it. Let's do it. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations, firstly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we're going to mix things up a little bit here. I'm going to show you a photo. I've been on your Instagram stalking some of your work.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to show you the image, and I'm keen to know the backstory on the photo. So let me know what you think of this.
Yep. Okay, Central C. All right, yeah. Cool. I didn't know at the time that he was looking directly at my camera. It was one of those weird kind of, I was looking through, I was like, oh, I caught one where he's looking straight at my camera, because that doesn't usually happen in shows. You kind of never get one where they're looking straight down the barrel at you. So that was at Promised Land. So he was actually performing at Listen Out, and he was booked for all the Listen Out tours, and Promised Land was the same day as Listen Out in Brisbane. So he had done his set in Brisbane, and the guys at Listen Out were talking to his team, and they were trying to get him to come play Promised Land as well. So we didn't even know, and then till maybe half an hour before, they're like, oh, by the way, be ready in half an hour, Central C's doing a short set We're like, what the hell, you know? We were, this was kind of like right after Doja, so it was kind of like, he was already, I knew plenty of his stuff, but Doja Cat, I think, was one of those ones, that track that kind of made him more mainstream and that kind of thing. So it was literally around that time too. So yeah, it was one of those things like all of a sudden he's just there and I'm like, okay, cool. Central C's here, right? Cool. You know, it wasn't on my bingo card for that day, you know, but yeah.
All right, I'm going to show you another photo while we're in this space. I'm really keen to know the backstory on this shot.
Oh, okay, yeah. This was, oh yeah, okay. So I shot Black a few times during different tours and stuff like that. So I actually was put on to shoot at Culture Kings when he came into store. So I used to work there, so I have like connections there still, and they know me still and all that. So they hit me up and said, hey, can you come do the video for his in-store when he comes and visits the store and does fan photos and stuff. So I did that, and then I ran into a guy there who I had kind of followed on Instagram, and he's part of his label, and we had chatted maybe like 2016 or something when I first, because I started doing music photography ages ago. I was really into it. Like, for me, it was a way to go see the people I wanted to go see their shows anyway, but I could also grow like a platform from it as well. And kind of, not everything was paid because like you're kind of shooting for random websites and stuff. But for me, I was like, oh, I can use this opportunity to kind of find something later on that'll pay me in a sense, or like I can use it to grow my platform, or just go see a dope artist I like. That I would, instead of paying $80 to go see their show, I get it for free and I'm in the front row.
Yeah.
You know,
so way to do it.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of it. And then, so anyway, I hit him up and was like, oh, can I come to the show later? And he was like, oh yeah, come through. Like, just chuck me your name and I'll just get you a pass. And yeah, ended up going to the show. And then I think this one here, like trying to experiment with like slow shutter sort of stuff, you know, so.
Oh, so that was in camera?
That's in camera. Yeah, that's
nice,
in camera.
Man.
So like, was just trying to like, cause like you see people do stuff, you're like, I'll try that out, you know. I hadn't really done anything like that with live music. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, I'll just see what I get. There's probably 200 photos though that were no good. And this is the one that come out and like actually kind of like had the right effect to it and stuff. So
what shutter are you shooting on? I mean, I know you probably can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like for something like that, it's quite dark and stuff. So I mean, like with music, I'm always trying to shoot it like 1/320 or something, you know, like having a higher shutter speed to capture that motion. So like bring it down to like 1/20 maybe or something like that, like 1/20th of a second or something like that. I think you can kind of find the sweet spot where it's enough blur, but you can still make out who it is and all that kind of thing. So I think you kind of have to work with the light that's there, and then also work with how much blur and how much you actually want to see who it is as well. You know?
Well, because I guess nowadays, I mean, I know your work, so I was assuming that was an AI, but you know, this is the thing now, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
AI is in a lot of content. What's your thoughts on AI? Because it's always interesting hearing people's perspective on it.
Yeah. I think there's no. So I think for like the last maybe like year or two since it's kind of been coming along, it's not quite there, but I think in the next year or so it's going to be there. Like it's going to be viable, and it's actually going to be able to be harnessed properly, you know. And I think there's a lot of guys out there doing crazy AI work, like really, really good AI work. So I think you can't really be like, oh, like I don't like it and shy away from it. I think you have to try and figure out ways that you can kind of incorporate it into what you're doing, and like even if it's just coming up with like reference frames for a video and then you go and shoot it. You know, if it's something like that, you know, at least like, I think there's a lot of things like that where like it provides value in a sense, but I always get the weird feeling like if it's someone selling, like they're selling prints and it's just an AI thing or something, or like, you know, they're selling it or they're putting it off like this is a real photo, but it's AI. And like, I think you can still tell, but I know that it's only a matter of time till you can't. So yeah, I think for me, I've been following like a few different pages and guys that give you updates on different things. And I'm just trying to keep in the loop in a sense, so I can kind of at least know what's there and what it's looking like and how it's working and stuff a little bit. But I think it's the biggest rabbit hole though. Yeah. I think to get really good at it, you'd have to go way down the rabbit hole and know just all these different programs and prompts and the way it all works and stuff and the ins and outs. I think there's a lot to learn there, but at the same time, if you can harness it, I think down the track it's going to be super valuable.
Because I know a lot of photographers and videographers, get worried about AI, that they're going to lose their job and they're going to be replaced. Have you actually heard of many creatives that are losing work because of AI? Is that a thing yet?
No, not that I've really heard of, but I know the thing is, like, if you're shooting for like a brand, it's not yet at a point where you can take a shirt or a shoe and put it in there and do stuff with it, in a sense. I think it's close though. I think that there's a lot of stuff getting close. Like you can do AI generated models for your products now or something like that. And I don't know how it all works. But that's one of those things, like if that was your job and this is coming for it, you need to learn about that so you can try and use it and try and figure out what's next for you. Because I think it's inevitable, like it's like if you were building a car like 70 years ago, you're building cars, and then all of a sudden the robot comes along and the robot's doing it all way quicker. Okay, what's next? How do I, you're going to have to try and figure something out. So I think in the creative space, I think what's going to become more valuable now that AI is coming up is the like authentic, like human connection type side where you're putting like an emotion to it, where you're making someone feel something with your work. And I think that's going to become more valuable. Just because the fancy stuff and the shots and everything like that you can do in AI, but actually connecting a story to it and telling something that's authentic and can resonate with someone, I think that's something that AI might never quite harness, maybe. Yeah,
I agree. I think the way I see it is there's always going to be positives and negatives to every situation, but I always refer it to like vinyl records, so when MP3s first, came out, everyone was freaking out. And then obviously MP3s soared, but then there's the contrast where vinyls came back and everyone wanted the crackle and the authentic sound that a vinyl gives. And it's the same with film photography, right? Digital cameras get sharper and more crisp. But I mean, personally for me, my eyes get sore looking at images that are too sharp and too perfect and too clean. So
I get you,
that's why film photography has just exploded, in the last couple of years, because there's always going to be the people that are like rebels or want the authentic and the original thing and that more human connection, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, like the more accessible digital came, the more inaccessible film has become really, like, the film costs more and it costs to get developed, and you kind of have to take more care. And I think it's kind of, I respect it. I was really against film for a bit because I was like, it's people just do it because it's like the aesthetic and like
the hipsters.
I kind of was like, oh no, like, but like I could always appreciate the artistry behind it and like the knowledge you have to have as well, because I think it's like a different knowledge to just shooting on digital. Like digital, you can look at the back of the camera and you can kind of flick things around until it looks all right, and you can kind of get something decent. Whereas with film, if you didn't know what settings to have, there's no way to check until you get it back, So I think it's that skill set and that you're capturing that single moment rather than spamming 100 shots. You know that every shot you take is $4. So you're going to be more careful, and you're going to think about your framing and plan out exactly what your vision is before you click the shutter. Whereas with the digital, you can kind of workshop it. You go click, okay, let's try this, click, and you can kind of build on your idea until you get a bunch of images you're happy with. But I think it's reversed with film. You have to have the idea and the frame and picture it, and then be like, okay, now it's time to pull out the camera and actually take the vision I have or whatever it is. Yeah.
Do you shoot much film yourself?
I've gotten into it, I got into it a little bit. I stumbled across my dad. Like my dad had this old film camera that I didn't know about, and stumbled across that and started shooting a bit here and there. So yeah, I definitely appreciate the skill set of it, and also like that, what I was saying, like taking time and care and thinking about what you're doing before you actually click the shutter and take the image.
All right, man, let's get into another photo and get your response.
Okay.
I've got a few here. I'm just wondering.
I'm glad you didn't go back.
But pull out your
There's
first...
some good ones back there, though. There's
Yeah?
some good ones back there. Yeah. Some real good ones.
Have you kept your Instagram like from when you very first started?
Yeah, I haven't done a wipe or anything like that.
Oh, wow, okay.
So like you can go back to 2015 and be like, Jesus.
Okay, so this is a video,
Okay, yep.
but I'm keen to hear the response on this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah. Video with Rule for Puma, yeah. Okay, yeah, that one was shot down the road here.
Yeah, that's
literally down the road here.
Yeah, one reason why I brought it up because I love this location.
You've shot here heaps too, right? Yeah, I know
yeah.
this is a favorite location of yours. And that was he was in town for a bit, and it was kind of like they wanted to go back. He shot his very first album cover here. So they wanted to go back here because it was celebrating like the 50th year anniversary of that album. So it was kind of tied into that, and then it was tied into Puma as well. So it's kind of like a Puma ad, but also celebrating the 50th year anniversary of this album, his first album. And it's so funny, like he's, I don't know how old he was then, maybe like 16, 17, and now he's like 23. But he looks like he was 10, and now he's like 25. It's just such a difference. So it's kind of funny getting him back in the same spot and taking these photos, but taking this video and stuff. But yeah, that one just came around from his label. I think they just wanted someone with they had some ideas though. They definitely had some ideas, and they were like, this is what we want to try and do. And it was like the recreating like multiple things of him, and just like a simple idea you can just base off, So it's like a cloning technique where most of the time you just do it on a tripod, or if you get real technical, like a robot arm can do it, where it matches the frame and you can have him in different spots and stuff.
Yeah.
But we ended up actually there's a shot in that video that was shot on a drone.
Oh, wow, yeah, because that shot's crazy.
Yeah, so we programmed the drone to just do the same path backwards and forwards, and we got him doing different things. And it was a nightmare for Kevin. He was like, never do that again to me. Because the drone, even though it does the same path, it's not exactly the same frame.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible to have something flying in the air with wind and whatever to do exactly the same movement and have everything exactly the same framing. So there was a lot of rotoscoping and tracking stuff and everything for to make that work. But yeah, just like it was a simple project. I think we shot it in, maybe took like 2 or 3 hours to shoot. And we were like, let's just do it at golden hour, best lighting, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think it was 3 of us just running around with Rule and his team, and just trying to get it done kind of thing. So
that's cool. Well, I'd love to get into some of the campaigns and commercials like you've done for brands like Nike, Champion, Puma. I mean, these are all the dream brands, a lot of people want to shoot with. I mean, what's it like? Let's pick Nike. I know you've done a few things for Nike.
Yep.
When Nike comes to you, how does the process usually go? Like, what's the brief? How does it start? And walk us through that process.
So I think with Nike being such a big company, they use agencies. So they didn't actually approach us. It's more the creative agency comes to us. And basically, I think throughout those Nike ones, most of them were with an agency called Space Between. Super talented. They're based in Melbourne. And they have like really good ideas, and I think they're good at also managing like client expectations and things like that. So I think having an agency is good because it they can go to the client and like be the middleman and kind of bounce the ideas back in a way that you can understand it, I think as well.
Yeah.
Because some brands might just speak their language and they're not speaking a creative language. So you kind of need to have someone there. That's what agencies do, I guess. They kind of that middle thing that translates, this is what the brand wants for like the brand side, the branding, the image to sell product, whatever it is. But then it's also, they understand the creative process, so they can kind of mediate that whole thing. But yeah, I guess like they come to us, but they have the idea already. So a lot of the stuff, they come to us like, hey, this is the idea. They have a whole treatment deck that they've pitched to Nike and they've gotten approval on and stuff like that. So they kind of come to us and say, this is it. What do you think? This is like the framework we want to run within. And this is the idea and the concept and what it's going to look like and everything. So it's quite well thought out. And I think for us it's kind of like, you don't get that creative freedom in a sense. And you're kind of executing their idea. But at the same time, there is that freedom to kind of add something to it or say, what if we did this? Or you can pivot things, So I think it's just about working with them and the client, and then also just figuring out how to actually make it come to life. Because I think the ideas sometimes are the easy part, but it's like, how do you then translate this to real life, shooting it, and also having it not cost through the roof or whatever it is, but yeah, like a few projects with Nike have been some of our favorite work, I think, and a lot of work that people hit us up about, or that they saw and stuff, so yeah, super grateful. I mean, we never thought we would get to that.
It's the pinnacle.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, right? You always think, oh yeah, like it'd be so cool to do that. And I think for us, we were just trying to work with more brands and trying to do unique work and all that kind of stuff. And
okay, so say as an example, because we've covered the hip hop stuff, agencies or brands like Nike, Champion, Puma, are they interested at all in any of the stuff that you've done in the hip hop scene, or is that irrelevant, or does that give you like some street cred and wow factor with these brands?
Yeah, I think yes. I guess if they hit your page or your website and stuff like that, and they see the work you've done, I think they could probably see how it could translate to their idea that they have already in mind or something, And I was just trying to think if there's anything that's been directly like referenced from one of our music videos, and they've been like, oh, we really like this, can we do it here? I think there might be one, like we did a music video and it had like the paper cut transition, like the real like papery kind of like textures and stuff like that. We did that idea because it was something we hadn't done, and we'd seen, I think it was Floor Seats, ASAP Ferg was the video.
I was about to say,
that's and we're like, okay, like that's a cool idea, like let's try and do our own thing with it. And make it our own, and just experiment with it. Experiment with this concept in a sense. And then from that, we had a brand thing just come along that we did that on, and then and Champion saw it, and then I think Champion and the agency that was working with them on the project hit us up and was like, "Hey, we saw this that you did for this brand. Can we do something along the same lines? Because that's what we thought of for this, So, I think that was a music video into like a smaller brand job into Champion. So it kind of like flowed through that one idea, and just kind of perfecting it and experimenting with it and stuff flowed through and became that. So, I think it's interesting though, like sometimes people we got hit up to do this random like job for a brand, and they were like, oh, have you done something like this before? And I was like, oh, we don't have anything exactly like this. Like it involved shooting underwater too, because it was like we had to shoot some stuff underwater for it if we got the job. Have you shot underwater? No, we haven't, So it was kind of one of those things. And like, even though we had all this like work that we're super proud of, they ended up not getting us because we hadn't done anything super similar to what they wanted in a sense. Even though we were like, we can do it, like we can do it. All the stuff you want is easier than all the rest of the stuff you can see on our page. But because it didn't look like that, they were like, I don't know if these guys can do it,
Yeah.
So.
Well, because that's one thing I educate a lot of creatives on is, I remember when I was starting, right, I had a mix of, on my website and Instagram, corporate, weddings, hip hop, music videos, and, all this type of stuff. But I really wanted to get into, the sports Nike space. And I mean, it took me a while to understand that unless you have, the thing that you're actually trying to target. So for me, it was Nike style content. Unless you've actually got that particular style of content, you're not going to get that work. Even though, like you say, like, oh, we could do that underwater thing easily, but people need to see like the actual end result before they essentially build trust in you, right? That's
kind of it. Yeah. That's kind of exactly it. And I mean, for us, it was no biggie. We were like, okay, cool. It would have been a cool job to put our spin on and stuff. But I think you're exactly right, though. Like if you're doing, I think that's why we kind of, because we've done some stuff for like Bonds and like all these other kind of brands, but it hasn't made our page because it doesn't quite fit the
aesthetic.
It doesn't fit like what we want to do. Like we could post it, but then it's like it'll be like Foot Locker, Nike, Bonds underwear. And it's a completely different vibe. It's like happy family vibe, all this kind of stuff, So I think for us, even though it's like a recognizable brand and like a big brand as well, for us it was kind of like, oh, the actual aesthetic of it doesn't fit where we kind of are situated, I guess, as a company and the work we do.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense to post it. But it's like that, like we won't get hit up for anything for like a underwear company or bonds or anything or family type stuff.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any of it on our page. I think that's it, you know.
I mean, that's a really interesting topic to talk about because, I mean, even for me, the jobs where I've like essentially made the most money is in the corporate world, but I've never posted, you know, that kind of content because, yeah, you make, you know, some good money from it, but it's not, you know, what I dream about shooting. So I totally understand in that sense. I mean, would you, I guess, consider, you know, starting a different page and having, you know, the more bonds corporate style, or are you not interested in even trying to tap into that market?
It's always a thought, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's always a thought of like, do we do that and try and pivot to just doing more any type of brand? But I don't know. I mean, the last project we did in Brisbane, I was just come back from, was for like a financial group. And
nice.
And it's like super clean, super commercial type of vibe.
Yeah.
So
that's where the money's at, those companies.
No, I mean, yeah. But I mean, like for us, it was like one of our friends had a contact at the company, and they approached him for it, and then he would come to us and said, "Oh, let's get everyone together and do this," you know. So I think in that kind of way, we were like, "Yeah, cool," you know, it'll be something different, something interesting. And it's one of those very rare moments where you don't have anything that looks like what they want, but they trust in you to be able to do it. You know? So I think that's super rare. Super rare.
I mean, you can't exactly show a financial company like your Cursor hip hop music video and be like, "Trust me, like we can do this."
Trust me, we can do clean commercial. Like, you know, I think for us, like we were looking at the frames and stuff, and it felt like a Combank, RACQ. You know, these types of brands, that's what we were aiming for with the project. So seeing the frames and stuff, you kind of have to be in a different mindset. You can't be in the, like, oh, it's not moody enough. No, it has to look clean. It has to look bright. It has to look nicely lit. And the framing, you can't do anything crazy with the camera. It has to be very, you know, it doesn't have to
safe.
It doesn't have to be, but I think for the flow of the video and how we were editing it and all that kind of thing and how it fits together, it leans more into tripod shots. Or like a dolly or a slider instead of a crazy whip pan or whatever it might be, you know. So yeah.
Okay, so you've done the hip hop music videos. I mean, essentially, you could say you've mastered that and you've conquered that scene. You've done a lot of brand work: Nike, Puma, Champion. Where to next? Is there something that you're trying to strive for? Is there, you know, bigger goals, bigger dreams, or are you kind of in a sweet spot right now and you're just going with the flow?
I think even like earlier this year, I was talking to you about it as well, and it's kind of, I think we were, as a company, when we were still in Brisbane before we moved down to Melbourne, we were in a thing of trying to do YouTube and trying to do tutorials and trying to like just share what we knew in a sense, because I think we've never been the type to gatekeep ideas or locations or anything, you know. Sometimes people won't tell you where they shot something because they want to keep it under wraps. But like, I think for us, it's kind of like, if you use it, then make sure you make it better than what we did, you know, like that kind of thing, you know, without getting too cocky or anything. But like, that's the kind of thing, like, go use it for sure. I'll tell you exactly where it is or whatever it might be. And like the transitions, I will teach you exactly how to do it. Because for us, it's kind of like, we don't want to be redoing like work exactly like that. So if we give away the recipe, it's okay, because we're going to hopefully be moving on to something that's a little bit different, you know. So that was kind of what we were aiming for. And I think next year it's something I want to try and reignite, I guess, as a company, and I guess even like for myself. But yeah, I mean, one thing this year, I've like had all these ideas, but I haven't actioned them. So I think for me, it's kind of like more a thing I've got to start doing. You know? And that's why I respect what you've done, you know, exactly what you've done over the last like 2 years with your work and stuff too. And just the way you've kind of put yourself out there and been like, hey, like, this is me, this is what I make. Whereas us, we're more, apart from our behind the scenes videos, which are like, for us, we love them. We think we're like hilarious, and we think it's like, it's so cool to kind of see. I think people who do watch our behind the scenes videos get that as well. They get the the scale of what the project was. They're like, oh, I never knew it was like this much work involved in something or whatever, you know. So I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think these days we're lucky to be doing our job, and I think we're lucky to be doing something that we genuinely enjoy. And you know, we get out and we meet new people. We're working with these brands. We're seeing different places in the world. We're meeting like talented people and whatever it is, you know, like, and at the same time we get to put out work that can hopefully inspire someone, or hopefully someone sees it and they're like, I want to make something like that, you know, because I think we were once that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. No, that's great, man, that you want to not gatekeep and share the knowledge, because I was that way for a number of years where I was afraid to tell people, oh, that's the location, and oh, this is how I did that. So I've learned to pass on the knowledge, because it makes the scene better. You know, you want to see things get bigger and better in Australia particularly.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But one thing that you and I talk a lot about is social media and the love-hate relationship for social media.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with social media?
Like non-existent? No, I mean, like I'm on it, but I think for me, I've always, for a long time, I was like, oh, I'm just behind the camera. That's me. I'm like not in front of the camera. I'm not that person kind of thing. But you see more and more now these days that there's so much value, and people connect better when there is someone in front of the camera. So I think leading into next year, that's going to be something that I'm going to try and start doing myself, and also start trying to get more of our team and who we work with in front of the camera too. Because I think that's just the way the world is now, you know?
Yeah.
Especially like, would you trust this faceless company, or would you trust this person? Like, it's more like you're this person and you also do this, you know, and they connect with you as a person, and then you also do this.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was talking to a guy last night in Germany that I randomly connected with, because he used something we had done in a video, and it was kind of, he was pointing out that he was pointing out trends.
That. Yeah, I saw that.
Have you seen that? Yeah. And he's like, here's what the most hot shit directors are doing in their videos. And it was one of our videos, and I was like, I tagged like,
it was a Rule video.
Yeah. So I tagged like my mates, like who we did the video with, and I was like, is he teasing us, or is he taking the piss in a sense? But from doing that though, we just started talking, and like, he's the nicest guy, and like his biggest thing is similar to yours over the last like year or two. It's been get in front of the camera, talk about what's good, talk about what's bad.
Yeah.
People connect with it because they see like, oh, you do this amazing work, but at the end of the day, like, you're just a normal guy. Like, and then it takes away this like thing of like, oh, I will never be able to do that. Like, that's too far up there. I can't achieve it. And I think if they just see how relatable you are and like can connect, like, I think that's super valuable. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, we've got all the camera gear, but we're just so afraid to jump in front of the camera. You know,
well, not anymore. Like,
yeah, I know. But this is what's funny, right? Is that I never would have imagined I'd be doing YouTube and being in front of the camera. I used to think it was so corny and cliche, but as you mentioned, now having a personal brand is so important, and just communicating with your audience and building trust, you know. And I think where a lot of photographers and videographers they struggle with is not showing their face. You know, so often, like you say, you go on someone's Instagram page and you're like, I have no idea what this person looks like.
I've been been in the room with people, like, been shooting with them the whole day, and then afterwards, like, we get tagged in the story or something, like, that was you, you know, like that kind of thing, you know. So, and I think for me, like, I always kind of felt like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, maybe I should do more, you know, and never really got around to it, but hey.
Yeah. It's all about...
Gonna try.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it has to do when the time is right for you, but you can't hold off for too long, otherwise you can end up missing the boat. But I mean, for me, you know, I wish I got into YouTube and this type of thing, you know, many years ago, but it's I'm just so glad that I've done it now. That's it.
Yeah. I think once you get a few under your belt and you see people genuinely like connecting with it, and I think that, you know, you're okay, I'm doing all right. Like, this is okay. You know, I was going to say, I have vlogs from like 2018 where I'd start vlogging in the morning.
Oh, nice.
And then by halfway through the day, I'm like, this is stupid. No one's going to watch this. And I talk myself out of finishing the shooting. You know, like things like, you know, things like where it was mainly when I was at Culture Kings. So like we're going to do some event, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to like show what actually goes on behind this event or something like that, or document it.
Yeah.
And like some of them, like one of them, I had a certain amount of US dollars for Juice WRLD, and I had it on my body because they had to get out of the bank in Brisbane. I had to fly to Melbourne, and I was the only person going, so I had to take the money with me. And so I had like a lot of US dollars to, like, because when someone comes in the store, they get paid for like making an appearance. You know, it's not just, sometimes it is just come in and get some clothes, but sometimes they want a fee to come do it. So I had that money with me in US dollars in like a bum bag under my shirt, because I was like so nervous about losing it or something, because it was like, you know, it was like a few, maybe like 2 months of my wage worth of money or something like that.
Yeah.
But I did like a vlog that day, and then halfway through the day I just stopped.
Oh man.
But it was like, it ended up being like, you know, one of those things, obviously, like rest in peace Juice WRLD and all that, but one of those things that I would never get to do again. And ended up going to his show, and I met like, I shot the Kid Leroy as well. And this is back when he was like 16 or whatever, before he went to America, and obviously where he is now, you know. So I'm thinking that's one that stands out to me, because I'm like, if I vlogged that and had all this like interactions and bits and pieces, like how crazy would it be just to look back on now, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, oh, I got to start, but at the same time, it's just one of those things, just haven't done it.
As they say, man, stop thinking,
just jump.
Just jump.
Yeah.
So that's the motto for 2025.
Oh, bro, it's going to have to be. I need it tattooed somewhere so I can see it every morning or something, but yeah.
All right, well, look, let's finish off with camera gear. I know that this is something that, you know, everyone that's hopefully still watching at home is really curious to hear about. So what camera gear are you shooting with right now?
So for stuff that's just like a smaller scale, I guess, I just have like an A7S3. That's kind of been my thing for the last 3-4 years that I've done smaller projects on. And then if it's a bigger project, probably look at something like a FX6. Try and get a Red or an Ari if we can. But it's like the bigger you go with cameras, the more downtime there is. The more mucking around there is. Not mucking around, but the more like setup time there is, the more things can go wrong. And the more people you need too, you know. Like for say if we're shooting something with an Ari, we're like, our team, like Kevin and I, don't know how to use an Ari. So we're like directing and like making sure things are running smooth and doing that side of things. And then we have probably a DOP, like we've worked with Anthony Littlechild, he's down here in Melbourne. And his team, and he kind of has like a first AC, and that's the first AC is the one who will change the lenses and set up the focus. And there's no autofocus, so they're using like the remote focus connection thing, and it adds all these extra layers to it in a sense.
Yeah.
You know? And like it, for a lot of stuff, if you have the time and you have the team and the resources and everything, it's worth it because it looks amazing. But I think there's also other jobs where we've tried to force the Ari setup into it, and shooting on a Red and shooting on these cameras that take a little bit more time and effort and stuff, and a bigger production team. And looking back hindsight now, it's like, oh, if we just used like an FX6 like you have here, or an A7S3.
I had to pull out the big guns for the guests, man.
Hey, I like it. Need it in 6K. No. But that kind of thing is like, oh, we tried to force like the bigger camera, but the smaller and more nimble setup would have been way better. We would have been able to capture a lot more. We could have run and gunned a little bit more, which lent into what we were actually trying to do.
Yeah, get more creative.
Yeah, more room to do things on the fly, rather than do I have the right lens? Is the focus motor working? Is it connected? All these type of things that go into it, you know.
Well, I'd be curious to get your thoughts, because say, I remember the first time I used an Ari on a project. This is about 8 years ago. So there was a massive difference between an Ari and, you know, the Sony cameras that were out at the time, and, you know, a lot of the Canon cameras. Whereas now, like the Ari versus the FX3 on social media, can you even tell the difference? Like, I mean,
it comes down to color grade and stuff, I think, as well, and how you post process it and stuff, I think too. But
let's just say the average person.
I think the average person won't know.
Yeah.
The average person won't know, and the average person probably wouldn't care. You know, so I think it's in saying that there's been stuff that we've shot completely on A7S3, and having a good colorist who knows what he's doing and can use that footage, you wouldn't guess it was A7S3. I think, you know, and I think that's when you're using an A7S3 and you can achieve something that doesn't look like A7S3. I think that's where you're like, okay, that's the biggest bang for buck, you know, like in terms of like it's still, I mean, A7S3 is not a cheap camera. It's still $3,500, $4 grand. I don't know what it is right now, but I think I paid around that when I got mine a few years ago. And then you got lenses and everything on top of it. So it's still not a cheap alternative. But when you can make it look like
$120,000 camera.
Yeah, when you can make it look like a setup that's like that, and people aren't really going to know the difference, I think there's like value in that in a sense too. Yeah.
I mean, I won't call out any names, but I remember 10 years ago when I went to a music video and they were shooting on an Ari and they had like the full-on setup, right? All the works. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. And then I saw the final edit and I was just like, this looks terrible. You know what I mean? Like I could have shot something better on my 5D Mark III back then. And I mean, everyone's got a different perception of, you know, what is good and, you know, their aesthetic. But I think the key thing too is just because you're shooting on an Ari or the big camera gear, it doesn't guarantee high quality results. Yeah. Because that's what also blew me away when, you know, you and I first connected and you were showing me some of the music videos that you've done. I'm like, bro, what did you shoot this on? And you'd be like, oh, you know, the A7 III, whatever. And I'm like, dude, are you like, you know, are you serious?
Yeah. I think, what do we used to use? Oh, Blackmagic's as well. Blackmagic 6K. I think that just what you can achieve with a Blackmagic 6K is crazy these days too. So I think that's kind of on par with, say, like an FX6, that kind of level. But yeah, I guess that's the thing, even all the way back to like photography and when I first started photography too and stuff like that. And people always ask me that question. I'm sure you get it thousands more times than I do, but it's like, oh, I'm just getting into it. What camera should I buy? And it's like,
how long's a piece of string?
Yeah. How much money you got? Do you actually want to take it serious, or is it more a hobby? Like, you need a questionnaire to be able to kind of match them up with something that works for them in a sense, you know.
And not saying this in an arrogant way, but I have no idea about the lower tier cameras.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And like if their budget is like below $2 grand, I'm kind of like,
I
don't know. Go
University.
Have a look on YouTube and just see what's going on, you know. Or unless I've seen someone who's been like given the camera and they've posted about it, I'm like, oh, this looked cool. My friend, this guy used it, and send them the video or whatever. So, but apart from that, like you said, if it's entry level, which is a lot of people would be looking to try and dabble in it and get into it and try and see if it's for them, they wouldn't want to blow $3,500, $4 grand on the setup. So that's the kind of thing. And like, I guess that's also what I was going to say is that your resources about using an iPhone. And even like doing like when you've done like photography meetups in the past, and you're like, even if you shoot on an iPhone, come down, you know, because I think there's stuff that you can learn shooting on an iPhone that you can take amazing photos on an iPhone. You can shoot amazing videos on an iPhone these days too, you know. Yeah. So I think the knowledge side is something you could learn on an iPhone. And then when you think it's time, okay, get like a mid-range DSLR or something like that if it's something that you actually are passionate for. Yeah. Yeah,
because I mean, look, there's that famous saying, all the gear, no idea.
No idea, yeah.
And I mean, look, I totally get not everyone is trying to be a professional and turn it into a career, but there's a lot of people out there with all the gear and no idea.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, like Lua, the girl that works with me, the stuff that she shoots on an iPhone and then the way she edits and color grades, people always say to her like, oh my God, like what camera are you shooting on? And she's like, oh, my iPhone. And they can't believe it. It looks like a campaign shoot.
I'm pretty sure the iPhone 16 does like log and stuff now too. Yeah. Which is like crazy. It's crazy. Like, and the color grade you can get out of it is just insane. So, I mean, there's that, you know, there's that straight off the bat if you want to try and dabble in it and try and get better at something. I mean, if you picked up an iPhone, you also got to think about how you're lighting it, how you're framing it. All these things come into it. And I think that's the knowledge that you need, even if you were to go straight to a DSLR.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to learn all that, and then okay, I'm ready to actually like go and get a camera and do that.
Yeah, I agree. Start simple, learn the basics, storytelling, lighting, and progress from there. Don't just get the $5,000 camera and just hope that it's going to work out.
Yeah, years ago there was a guy who did that, and then he was selling it, and I think he just was like in tech or something like that. Like he had more money than sense in the sense of that. So he bought like an A7R 2 or 3 or something back when that was the best photo camera Sony had, and he bought it for like $4 or $5 grand, and then he was like, "Oh, I need to get rid of it. I'll sell it for like 2."
Damn.
And I was like, "I'll take it, you know.
Yeah.
I'll take it for $2 grand, you know." So, I mean, the guys who get all the gear and no idea if they get out of the game.
Yeah.
and you can pick up a camera and use it for cheap. I mean, why not? But yeah, I think there's definitely value in what you're saying, and trying to get the knowledge before necessarily going and getting the best gear and stuff together. But yeah.
All right, man. Well, let's finish off with, we're 2 weeks out from Christmas. 2 weeks out from the end of the year.
Yeah.
What are your plans for 2025?
Yeah, I think like this year for myself and like the company, like we moved to Melbourne in 2023, and then we were flat out for like 6 months of just craziness, and then I think we kind of just like got a little burnt out. So this year's kind of been a bit slower, just like doing bits and pieces and stuff. So I think next year it's definitely like one where I want to like get the personal brand stuff going. Not so much for me, but like myself and Kevin, who I work with on Moonboy Studios, and like the people we work with in that sort of thing too. Because I mean, the company is basically like me, Kevin, and Ali, who helps us like with content side of things. That's it in terms of like the actual business or something. But then we have like an extended circle of people that can do lighting, can do whatever it is, you know. So yeah, I think even just getting people involved in like that kind of thing and building like this team and showing the team off, and not showing them off, but like getting them in front of the camera and giving them like the platform and stuff, and just sharing knowledge and stuff. I think that's something we've always talked about, and something that we've always wanted to sort of do, and we have dabbled in it, but I think there's no better time than just doing it, you know. So I think that's what I want to get. That's what I want to get down to, and then I guess just getting back to like a few more brand sort of things and bits and pieces like that. Maybe get overseas for a music video or something. Who knows? Nice. You know. But that's always on the cards, and always something that you look at, saying like, oh, we can try and do this, but only time will tell. You know, just got to try and keep moving forward and stuff. But yeah.
Well, Jacob, thanks for coming on the show, bro. And congratulations on a epic career so far. And
oh man,
I've got to say you're an absolute gentleman. As you know, great friend, but also amazing guy to work with. So appreciate all the work that you've helped me with too. So
no, of course, I appreciate you getting me on, and I'm just glad to have connected with you, coming down here and stuff, bro. Like I think you have a unique kind of like thought pattern on how you do stuff, and even just like the way that like you've got your work around your room, and it's kind of like, why not be inspired by your own art in a sense, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like why not be inspired by stuff you've actually done, and I think that's a cool thing too. So I think when we first connected, that was one thing that opened my eyes, was how you kind of carry yourself, and like, hey, like I don't need prints from some crazy like famous photographer. I've taken these photos, you know, and I think it's just like really cool to see that you got that in your own space, and yeah, just like the way even you talk about business and the side of that, and then also how you've created the platform now and helping people, you know. So yeah, I'm really appreciative of you as well, bro.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. We'll have a hug once we turn the cameras off.
Yeah.